My granddaughter whispered to a stranger, so I followed her and froze in shock. It still sends a chill down my back when I think about that day. The way her little hand slipped out of mine so gently, like she didn't want me to notice, and the way that man leaned down to listen, smiling in a way I didn't like one bit. Now listen, I'm not the kind of woman who jumps to conclusions. I raised 3 children on my own. I've seen things, real things, but something about that moment felt wrong deep in my bones. We were at the grocery store that Sunday morning. I remember because I'd just come from church, still wearing my pale blue cardigan with the snag on the left sleeve. My granddaughter, Ava, was with me. She's 7, full of questions, and talks faster than I can keep up. She wanted to pick her favorite cereal, so I let her wander one aisle over, just within sight. But when I turned my head, she was gone. My heart dropped. You ever get that instant cold feeling, like ice water running through your chest? I left my cart right there in the middle of the aisle and hurried around the corner. That's when I saw her, standing near the end cap display of fruit sacks, talking to a man in a dark hoodie. He was squatting down to her level, nodding slow, saying something I couldn't hear. Ava was whispering, holding something small in her hand. I froze. I didn't want to make a scene, but I felt something twist inside me. "Excuse me, sir," I said, stepping closer. My voice came out firmer than I expected. He turned, eyes calm, too calm. "Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am," he said. "She dropped this coin. I was just handing it back." I looked at Ava. "That true, baby?" She nodded, but wouldn't meet my eyes. Her lips trembled just a bit. I thanked the man, took her hand, and walked away. But let me tell you something. I didn't believe him. Not one bit. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing Ava's tiny voice in my head. That whisper. The way she looked down instead of up. The way she squeezed my hand afterward, like she was scared I'd be mad. Now hear me out. I'm not one of those paranoid grandmothers who think every shadow means danger. But when a child acts different, when their spirit changes, it means something happened. The next morning, I made her pancakes like always. She picked at them, quiet as a church mouse. Usually, she's talking my ear off about cartoons and school, but not that day. So I said, "Ava, baby, you can tell Grandma anything. You know that, right?" She just nodded, eyes on her plate. Then she whispered, "Grandma, can I tell you a secret, but you can't tell Mommy?" My hands went still on the table. "Of course, baby." Grandma's lips are sealed. She looked around like she was scared somebody might hear. Then she said, "That man at the store, he knew my name." Lord have mercy. My stomach turned over. I tried to stay calm. "He knew your name? How, sweetheart?" She shrugged. "He said Mommy talks to him sometimes. He said he was going to help us." Now, I love my daughter, Ava's mama, but she's been mixed up in some bad choices lately. A new boyfriend every few months, no steady job, chasing quick money. I've seen that road before, and it don't end well. So I asked, "What kind of help, Ava?" She pressed her lips tight. I promised I wouldn't say. You ever feel your blood go cold while your face stays calm? That was me, sitting there, smiling at my grandbaby, while every nerve in me screamed that something was wrong. That night I prayed. I sat by my window, holding my Bible in both hands, asking the Lord to show me the truth. Because I could feel it. Something was about to break open. And baby, I didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, I got my answer. It was a Thursday afternoon when my daughter Tasha came by to pick up Ava. She had on a red dress, tight as always, hair done, phone glued to her hand. She barely looked up when she walked in. "Ma, can you watch her till Sunday?" she asked, scrolling through her phone. "I got a trip with a friend." I said, "Another friend?" She sighed. "Don't start, Ma. Now listen, I wanted to let it go. I really did. But the image of that man at the store wouldn't leave me. So I said, "Tasha, who's the man in the dark hoodie? The one who knew Ava's name?" Her eyes shot up so fast it startled me. "What man?" I leaned back in my chair. "The one she talked to by the cereal aisle. Said you told him about her?" For a split second, her face changed. Just a flicker. Fear, guilt, something. Then she laughed, too loud. "Ma, you imagining things again." I didn't press it. "Not yet. but I knew right then she was lying. Later that night, after they left, I went to my porch. The air was still. I sat there with my cup of tea, heart pounding. I didn't have proof, not yet, but I knew I was about to find it. Because when a grandmother's spirit starts warning her, she better listen. And Lord, I listened. What I saw next week nearly broke me. The next week started quiet. Too quiet. Ava stayed with me while Tasha was gone on that trip. Every night before bed, she'd sit on the couch with her teddy bear, eyes fixed on the window, like she was waiting for someone. That wasn't like her. I'd say, "Baby, come on, time for bed." And she'd whisper, "What if he comes back, Grandma?" Every time she said that, my heart clenched. I started noticing little things too. My phone ringing late at night, then silence when I picked up. A white car parked across the street that didn't belong to anyone on this block. Maybe it was nothing, but maybe it wasn't. Now listen, I've lived on this street for 22 years. I know every barking dog, every squeaky mailbox, every neighbor's routine, and something in that stillness felt off. So one night I made up my mind. I pulled the curtains just enough to peek through, lights off, teacup in hand. The clock said 10:43. Ava was asleep in the next room. That same white car was out there, engine humming low. My chest felt tight. I slipped on my old housecoat, grabbed my phone, and went outside, quiet as I could. The night air was thick, the kind that smells like rain even when it ain't raining. When I stepped off the porch, the car's headlights flickered off. I walked slow toward the edge of my yard, pretending to check my mailbox. The driver's window rolled down just a crack. I caught a glimpse. A man's face, half hidden under a hood. It was him, the same man from the grocery store. He started the car and pulled away, slow and steady. Not fast, not nervous, like he wanted me to see him. You understand what I'm saying? That's not normal. That's a message. The next morning, I called Tasha. No answer. I called again, straight to voicemail. By evening, I'd had enough. I took Ava to my friend Martha's house. She's the one who runs the church pantry, and asked her to watch her for a bit. Then I went back home alone. I searched through the drawer where Tasha kept her mail when she visited. Credit card offers, junk, a folded receipt from a pawn shop. My stomach dropped when I saw the name written on it. The same man. His name scribbled at the bottom. Reggie. Now hear me out. Reggie wasn't just some random man. I remembered that name. Years back, he used to run with a bad crowd, dealing, stealing, always working on something big. He'd tried to sweet-talk Tasha once before. I told her he was trouble. She said I was just old-fashioned. Seems like I was right. That night, I called a friend at church whose nephew worked part-time down at the pawn shop. He said, "Yeah, Miss Clara, that man comes in every week with jewelry, small electronics, always cashing quick. Lord have mercy." I sat on my couch, hands trembling. The picture started to form in my head, and it wasn't pretty. Tasha must have been mixed up with him again. Maybe she told him about Ava. Maybe she said I still had that life insurance money from when her daddy passed. And maybe, just maybe, that man was trying to get close to Ava for a reason that had nothing to do with kindness. My blood ran cold. So I did what any grandmother with sense and fear would do. I decided to test the truth myself. 2 days later, I told Ava we were going to the same grocery store. I dressed her in that yellow sundress she loved, tied her little braids neat, and told her to stay close. We went down the cereal aisle again. My heart thumped with every step. Then, just like before, she froze. Her eyes darted toward the corner. He was there, Reggie, pretending to check prices on a shelf, but watching us. I held her hand tight and whispered, "Don't look, baby." I pulled out my phone, hit record, and walked right up to him. "Looking for something in particular, Reggie?" He froze. His name hit him like a slap. "Ma'am, I think you got me mixed up." "No," I said, stepping closer. "I don't forget faces, and I sure don't forget the kind that whisper to little girls." He shifted, eyes cold now. "You best mind your business, old lady." I smiled. "You already in my business, son." The manager started walking over, noticing the tension. Reggie backed away, mumbling, and hurried out the door. I kept that video safe. I didn't call the police yet, not until I knew how deep it went, because something told me my daughter wasn't innocent in all this. And baby, I was right. The next night, when Tasha came back from her trip, I finally learned where that road of secrets really led and who she'd been protecting all along. Tasha showed up late that Friday night. Headlights flashed across my window, and I heard her car door slam. I was sitting in the living room, lamp on low, Bible open but unread. My hands were still shaking from everything I'd pieced together. She came in like a storm, loud perfume, red lipstick, that same careless grin she wears when she's trying to hide guilt. "Hey, Ma," she said, tossing her purse on the couch. "Where's Ava?" "Sleeping," I said, voice steady. "Where have you been?" She laughed. "I told you, Ma, a little weekend trip. Why you always gotta grill me like I'm 16? Now listen, I didn't plan to explode right away. I wanted her to talk first. But one thing about me, when my heart's full of worry, it's hard to hold back. So I said, "Tasha, you need to be honest with me. I saw that man again. The one Ava was whispering to." Her smile dropped, just like that, gone. "What man?" she said, voice low. "You know who," I said. "Reggie." She froze, eyes darting away. "I don't know what you're talking about." I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "I got him on video, at the store, watching your daughter like she's bait." Her lips trembled before she caught herself. Then she tried to act tough. "You shouldn't be spying on people, Ma." "Spying?" I said, almost laughing. "You out here letting strangers talk to your child, and I'm the problem?" She turned away, grabbing her purse like she might leave again. But I wasn't done. "Sit down, Tasha." The tone in my voice, she knew better than to ignore it. She sat. "Now you listen to me," I said. "You got that man's name on a pawn shop receipt. You've been lying to me for weeks. Tell me what you've gotten yourself into before it's too late." Her eyes filled with tears. She tried to wipe them fast, but I saw. "It's not what you think, Ma. He said he could help me. Said he could flip some money, help of rent." Lord, my heart sank. Flip money? Baby, that man's been flipping people for years. He don't help nobody unless he's taking twice as much back. "I know," she whispered. "I know, Ma. But I was desperate. I thought maybe if I just helped him with one job." I stood up so fast, the chair scraped the floor. "What job?" She looked down. "He told me about your policy money. Said if I could just get him a copy of your papers, he'd pay me enough to start over." "I didn't tell him where you kept them, Ma. I swear I didn't." My knees went weak. For a second, the room felt like it was tilting. My own daughter, my child, was ready to trade my life for rent money. Now hear me out. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. But instead, I just sat down again. "Tasha," I said softly, "you realize what could have happened? That man was watching Ava. If he couldn't get to me, he'd have gone through her." She covered her face with both hands. "I messed up, Ma. I really messed up." The house was quiet, except for her sobbing. Even the clock seemed to stop ticking. After a while, she said, "He's been calling me nonstop. Says I owe him now." I looked her dead in the eye. "You don't owe that man a thing. But if he comes near this house again, I'll make sure he answers to more than just me." She sniffled, nodding. "What you gonna do?" I said, "You let me worry about that." That night, after she went to bed, I made my plan. I wasn't about to let no man threaten my family again. Not after everything I've survived in this life. So I called up my friend Walter from church, retired cop. Always said if I ever needed help, I should call him first before the law gets messy. He picked up on the second ring. "Clara, what's going on?" I told him everything. The grocery store, the whispering, the white car, my daughter's deal. He went quiet for a long time, then said, "I know that name. Reggie Thompson. He's been running a small ring. Insurance fraud, fake papers, extortion. You did good not to confront him alone." I said, "Walter, he's already been near my grandbaby." He sighed. "I'll look into it. Don't go anywhere alone till I call you." The next morning, I woke up to a text from Walter. "You were right. He's dangerous. Let me handle this." But I couldn't sit still. My heart wouldn't let me. So I did something I shouldn't have done. I decided to follow Reggie myself. And baby, that choice changed everything. I know what you're thinking. An old woman following a man like that? But when your child and your grandbaby are in danger, fear takes a back seat. Instinct takes over. That Saturday morning, I saw that same white car again, parked 2 blocks down. I wrapped my scarf around my hair, put on my plain gray coat, and told Tasha I was heading to the farmer's market. But that wasn't my plan. I got in my car and waited till he started his engine. He didn't notice me following. Guess he thought I was just another neighbor running errands. We drove down past Maple Avenue, then turned onto that stretch of road where the pawn shop sits between a laundromat and an old liquor store. He parked behind the pawn shop, out of sight from the main street. My heart was thumping so hard I could hear it in my ears. He got out and met another man near the dumpsters. I couldn't hear them, but I saw Reggie hand over a small envelope, then count some bills he got back. Something about the way they moved. It wasn't right. Too cautious. Too slick. I pulled my phone out and hit record again, zooming in just enough to catch their faces. After a minute, one of them pointed toward my direction. I ducked down fast. Lord, my knees cracked so loud I thought I'd given myself away. But when I peeked back up, they were heading inside the shop. I sat there shaking. My breath came out in short gasps, but I couldn't leave yet. I needed to know everything before I went to Walter or the police. About 15 minutes later, Tasha's name popped up on my phone. I answered in a whisper. Ma, where are you? I'm out, I said, eyes still on that shop. Why? What's wrong? Her voice cracked. He called me again, said if I don't bring the papers tonight, he'll come himself. I froze. Tonight? He said that? Yes, Ma. I don't know what to do. I swallowed hard. You stay in that house. Lock every window and door. Don't open for anyone but me, you hear? Yes, Ma. I hung up and started my car. My hands were trembling on the wheel, but I knew what I had to do. When I got home, I called Walter right away. He said, Clara, don't you dare confront him again. I'm sending someone by your house tonight to keep watch. I agreed, but in my heart, I knew I couldn't sit still and wait for danger to come knocking. So that evening, I prepared my house like I used to back when my husband worked late shifts. Lights low, doors double locked, one lamp left on near the front window. Ava was asleep in the next room, Tasha pacing the floor like a ghost. Then, around 10:30, I saw headlights outside. The same white car. My stomach dropped. Tasha whispered, It's him. I said, Stay with Ava. I grabbed my phone and quietly moved to the front window. He got out, hood up, walking slow toward the porch. He didn't knock. He just stood there. For a second, it felt like the air stopped moving. Then he spoke, his voice muffled but clear. Tasha, you got what I asked for? I stayed quiet. He stepped closer. Don't make me come in there, girl. My chest was pounding. I hit record again on my phone, praying the signal would hold. Then, just as I was about to call Walter, flashing blue lights hit the window. Reggie turned his head just in time to see the police car stop right behind him. Lord have mercy, it was Walter. He'd come himself. Reggie took off running through the yard, but Walter was faster than he looked. 2 more officers jumped out, cutting him off by the fence. The sound of shouting and boots on gravel filled the night. I stood frozen at the window, clutching the curtain. Tasha came running, tears streaming. What's happening? I whispered. It's over, baby. He's done. They cuffed him right there under my porch light, and as they led him away, he looked back at me, those same cold eyes, but this time they weren't calm. They were afraid. When the cars pulled off, Walter came to the door. You all right, Clara? I nodded, finally letting out the breath I'd been holding all week. He said, You just saved your daughter and your granddaughter from something real dark. That man's been setting up women for years, using kids to get close. My legs gave out. Walter caught me before I hit the floor. It was over, or so I thought. But baby, karma has a long memory, and a week later, that same pawn shop where Reggie used to work burned down in the middle of the night. They said it started from faulty wiring, but you and I both know that wasn't no accident. That shop had secrets, and when secrets catch fire, they burn fast. The news said no one was hurt, but Reggie, he didn't come out clean. Walter told me he'd already confessed half his mess trying to cut a deal. Every name he gave the police dragged more people down with him. Tasha didn't say much those days. She stayed quiet, moved slower, like guilt was sitting heavy on her chest. Sometimes she'd just sit on the porch, watching Ava play, eyes wet but no tears falling. One night she said, "Ma, I don't deserve forgiveness." I looked at her long and hard. "You don't get to decide that, baby. That's between you and God." She nodded, then whispered, "I almost lost my daughter." I said, "You did for a moment, but he gave you another chance. Don't waste it. Now listen, I've lived long enough to know that karma don't need help. You plant poison, it comes back bitter. And that man Reggie, he got his share." 2 weeks later, Walter came by with that look on his face that always means bad news wrapped in justice. He said, "Clara, they found Reggie's car near the old rail bridge. Looks like he was running from somebody he owed money to. Didn't make it far." I just stared out the window. My tea went cold in my hands. "Wasn't me who wanted revenge," I said softly. "The world just caught up to him." Walter nodded. "He hurt a lot of people. The Lord's got his own way of balancing things." That night, I sat with Ava on my lap, brushing her hair slow. She looked up at me and said, "Grandma, are the bad people gone now?" I smiled, kissing the top of her head. "Yeah, baby, the bad people are gone. You're safe now." She smiled, then asked, "Will Mommy stop crying soon?" Lord, that child saw too much for her little age. I told her she will. Sometimes hearts need time to heal, same way knees do when you scrape 'em. Later that week, Tasha came to me again, holding a small box. She said, "Ma, I've been cleaning out some old things. I found this." Inside was a folded photograph, me, Tasha, and Ava, back when she was just a baby. Tasha's smile looked so pure then. She said, "I want to be that person again." I touched her cheek. "And start by being a mother your little girl can look up to, and stop chasing shortcuts. Real peace don't come quick. It comes honest." You know what? She listened this time. She got a job at the local daycare, started saving up, started praying again. Every Sunday, she'd sit beside me in church, hand in mine, Ava drawing in her little notebook beside us. Sometimes I'd glance at them both and just breathe. Because the Lord really does give beauty for ashes. Now, I won't lie. I still keep my porch light on at night. Habit, I guess. Every time that bulb glows warm through the dark, I remember what we survived. But I also remember what I learned. When life takes you through fire, it don't mean he's punishing you. It means he's burning off what was never meant to stay. So if you ever feel like the world's turned cold, baby, you hold on. Because one day, that same light you thought was gone will come back around. And when it does, you'll see karma don't just take, it teaches. Weeks passed, and peace started to settle back into the house. The kind of peace that don't come from silence, but from safety. You know what I mean? I'd wake up in the morning and hear Ava humming in her room, sunlight sneaking through the curtains. Tasha would be in the kitchen, burning toast as usual, but smiling. It felt like the house could finally breathe again. Still, every so often, I'd catch myself looking out the window, half expecting that white car to reappear. Old fear takes a while to fade. It clings like smoke even when the fire's out. One Saturday, Tasha came home from work early, face lit up like I hadn't seen in years. She said, "Ma, you'll never guess what happened today." I smiled. "Try me." She sat down at the table, holding an envelope. "The daycare's offering me full time. Benefits, too. They said they trust me. Me, Ma. After everything." I reached over and took her hand. "That's God's doing, baby. He don't throw folks away when they finally open their eyes." Her eyes filled again, but this time it wasn't shame. It was gratitude. Now listen, I don't pretend everything got fixed overnight. Trust takes time to grow back, especially when it's been torn apart by lies and fear. But Tasha showed up every day. She was learning how to be steady, how to keep her promises to herself and her child. Ava changed too. She laughed louder, played longer, started drawing pictures again. One evening, She ran up to me, holding a crayon sketch of us three, me, her, and Tasha, standing under a big yellow sun. Across the top, she'd written, "My family is safe now." Lord, I had to step away so she wouldn't see me cry. That night, after she went to bed, I sat out on the porch again. The air was warm, quiet except for the hum of cicadas. I closed my eyes and thought about how close we'd come to losing everything. Then I heard the screen door creak. Tasha came out, 2 cups of tea in her hands. She sat beside me, handing me one. We didn't talk at first, just sat there, sipping, watching the stars. After a while, she said, "You were right about Reggie, about everything. I kept trying to blame the world for my mistakes, but it was me. I let greed and fear mix, and it turned ugly." I nodded slow. "That's how the devil works. He don't come with horns, baby. He comes with promises." She laughed softly through her tears. "Guess I learned that the hard way." I smiled. "Better hard way than no way." For a long time, we just sat there. No words, just peace. The kind of peace that don't need sound. Then, right before we went back inside, I said, "You know what's funny? That man thought he could steal from us, but all he did was bring us back together." She leaned her head on my shoulder, whispering, "Thank you, Ma." I squeezed her hand. "Don't thank me, baby. Thank the Lord. He's the one who turned that mess into mercy." And you know what? I believed it, because after all the pain, all the fear, and all the tears, we weren't broken anymore. We were just awake. Now tell me something, baby. What would you have done in my place? Would you have followed that man like I did, or waited for karma to do her work? Either way, she always does. Always. Summer came early that year. The heat sat heavy on the porch boards, and every evening I'd fan myself with yesterday's newspaper while Ava ran through the sprinkler. You could smell the jasmine and the barbecue smoke from 2 houses over. Life had rhythm again. But peace has a quiet test to it. It asks whether you really learned or just survived. One afternoon, I was shelling peas in the kitchen when the phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't pick up, but something told me to. "Miss Clara," a man's voice said, "this is Officer Jennings. You're listed as a contact for a Mr. Walter Hayes." My heart stopped. What happened? "He had a mild stroke at the station. He's stable, ma'am, but he asked for you." Lord, I dropped that bowl right there on the floor. I grabbed my purse and rushed out. At the hospital, Walter looked small under those white sheets, but his eyes still had that spark. "Clara," he rasped, "don't you start crying. I ain't done preaching at you yet." I laughed through my tears. "You scared me half to death, old man." He smiled weakly. "Figured I'd remind you life don't stop testing us." We talked for a while, about faith, about second chances. Before I left, he squeezed my hand. "Promise me one thing. Keep telling folks what happened. Maybe it'll save someone else." I nodded. "You got my word." That night, I sat at my table, notebook open, writing everything down, from the whisper in that grocery store to the blue lights on my lawn. The words poured out like water breaking a dam. I realized then it wasn't just my story, it was a warning. Because evil don't always come kicking down your door. Sometimes it smiles, calls you ma'am, and knows your grandbaby's name. A month later, the church asked me to speak at the Women's Fellowship. I stood up there, knees trembling, heart pounding, and told them the truth. Every word. The gasps, the tears, the silence after, it felt like healing. Afterward, a young mother came up, eyes red, and said, "Miss Clara, I think I needed to hear that tonight." That's when I knew my pain had purpose. Now hear me out, baby. Karma didn't just bring Reggie down. It lifted us up. It taught my daughter the cost of shortcuts, taught me the strength of stillness, and gave Ava a childhood worth fighting for. Some nights I still sit on that porch, same light glowing warm through the dark. The world's quiet, but my heart ain't afraid anymore. I whisper a little prayer, the kind my mama used to say. "Thank you, Lord, for letting the storm show me who I was meant to be." And if you ever find yourself standing in a storm of your own, remember this. Don't rush to fight it. Let it reveal. Let it cleanse. Because truth, no matter how long it hides, always finds its way home. That's how I know we were never cursed. We were chosen to learn. Time's got a funny way of healing what you thought would stay broken forever. Months turned into a year, and little by little, laughter filled the house again. Ava started second grade that fall. She'd come home every afternoon with drawings and stories about her new teacher, Mrs. Lane. That girl's spirit was light again, free. Sometimes she'd stand in the doorway, arms crossed, pretending to guard me like some tiny soldier. I'd laugh so hard my sides hurt. Tasha kept her promise too. No more shady friends, no more half-truths. She walked straight, steady, paid bills on time, went to work even when she was tired. I could see the woman she was meant to be blooming right in front of me. Now listen, baby. Peace don't mean life stops testing you. It just means you start trusting yourself to pass the test. One morning, Tasha brought in the mail and handed me a plain white envelope with no return address. The handwriting looked familiar, but I couldn't place it. I opened it slow. Inside was a short note, just 6 words. Thank you for not giving up. No name, no signature. For a moment, I thought maybe Walter had sent it, or someone from church. But then I saw the postmark. Same city where Reggie's case had been filed. I felt a chill, but not the old kind. This was different, like the universe was closing a chapter. Maybe he wrote it before he was gone. Maybe someone else did. Doesn't matter, because those words, those 6 little words, felt like peace settling its final debt. That night, I stood outside on the porch again. The moon was bright, that soft kind of glow that makes the world look like it's forgiving itself. I whispered, Lord, I see you. I see what you were doing all along. Ava came out with her blanket, sleepy-eyed. Grandma, you talking to yourself again? I chuckled. Maybe, baby. Maybe I'm talking to someone who listens better. She climbed into my lap, and we just sat there, the night quiet around us. Then she said, when I grow up, I want to be strong like you. That one sentence, it broke me all over again, but in the best way. I hugged her tight. You already are, sweetheart. You just don't know it yet. Because strength ain't about what you lift. It's about what you carry and still manage to love through. Tasha stepped onto the porch with 3 mugs of cocoa, smiling at us. Family tradition? She said. I nodded. Every night till we can't lift these mugs no more. We laughed, clinking cups under that silver moon. And for the first time in a long, long while, I realized something powerful. Karma don't always come to destroy. Sometimes she comes to rebuild, slow and quiet, teaching you how to hold joy without fear. So if you're listening to me right now, baby, hear this with your whole heart. Pain will visit you, but peace, when it finally comes, stays longer. And the truth, it always shows up, even if it takes the long way home. The following spring felt lighter than any I could remember. The azaleas bloomed bright around the porch, and the air smelled like second chances. Every Sunday, after church, the 3 of us would stop by the park near the river. Ava loved feeding the ducks. Tasha would sit on the bench, sketching with a small smile that used to belong to a younger version of herself. Watching them together, I realized something. I didn't just survive that season. I grew through it. Now listen, baby. Healing ain't quiet work. It's messy. It's waking up some mornings still hearing echoes of the old fear. But you keep breathing. You keep showing up anyway. One day while I was tidying the attic, I found an old photo album. Dusty corners, cracked leather cover. Inside were pictures from years back, me and Tasha before the world hardened her, before life tested us both. There was one photo where she was about Ava's age, sitting on my lap, smiling that same toothy grin her daughter has now. My eyes filled. I whispered, you came back to me, baby. Just took the long road. That evening, I showed the album to her. She stared at those photos for a long time, fingers tracing over our faces like she was touching memories she'd forgotten she still owned. Ma, she said, voice soft, I used to think you were too hard on me, but now I get it. You weren't trying to control me. You were trying to save me. I smiled. That's what mothers do, baby. Even when their kids don't understand till it's almost too late. She nodded, wiping a tear. I'm sorry for all the times I made you feel like you had to fight me just to love me. Lord, I felt something loosen in my chest right then, like a knot finally giving way. Apology accepted, I said. But truth is, I stopped being mad a long time ago. Anger just weighs too much to carry forever. We hugged, long and quiet. Later that night, after Ava went to bed, Tasha made tea for us both. She looked out the kitchen window and said, You think God lets people start over, even after the damage? I said, He don't just let you start over. He waits for you to. That's grace, baby. That's mercy, walking with you in every wrong turn until you finally face the right one. She smiled through her tears. You always got the right words. I chuckled. That's 'cause I've run out of wrong ones. The next morning, sunlight came pouring into the house like it was trying to bless us. I watched Ava and Tasha eat breakfast, laughing about spilled milk and burnt toast. And it hit me. This was the justice I'd prayed for. Not revenge, not punishment, just peace. You understand what I'm saying? Karma didn't strike down one man to make a point. She set the world right so we could move forward. And maybe that's how it's supposed to be. Because real justice isn't about seeing others fall. It's about seeing yourself rise again without hate in your heart. So now, when I tell this story to women at church or young mamas trying to hold their families together, I end with this. Don't run from the lesson just because it hurts. Sometimes the hurt is what shapes you. And sometimes, when you think life's breaking you, it's really just bending you toward the light. That summer, something beautiful happened. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet and steady, the way real blessings come. Tasha bought her first car. Nothing fancy, just an old blue sedan that rattled a bit when you turned the key. But Lord, she was proud. She came up my porch steps holding those keys like they were gold. Ma, she said, grinning ear to ear. Look what hard work bought me. I hugged her so tight she squeaked. That's the sound of change, baby. That's what redemption looks like. She laughed. Guess you were right all along. I winked. Don't guess, no. Ava came running out with her backpack, twirling in her little pink dress. Grandma, can I go for a ride in Mommy's new car? I smiled, only if she promises to drive under the speed limit. Tasha rolled her eyes. Always the rules, always the love, I said. They laughed and drove off down the street, windows rolled down, music playing. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to watch the corner or worry about who might be lurking nearby. The fear that had lived under my ribs for so long was gone. That evening, I sat on the porch again, cup of tea warm in my hands. The sun was setting, painting the sky in orange and gold. I could hear the crickets starting their nightly song. Everything was still. I thought back on all of it, the whisper in the store, the lies, the danger, the fire, the tears. Every moment that had broken me also built me. Now listen, baby, life don't always give you the justice you expect. Sometimes it gives you something better, peace of mind and a chance to begin again. That's the thing about karma. She doesn't move fast, but she's faithful. She circles back in her own time, carrying both the pain and the lesson. And let me tell you something I've learned. You can't heal if you're still holding the hammer. You gotta set it down and let truth do what truth does. Tasha came home just before dark. She parked, ran up the steps, and kissed my cheek. Mom, I was thinking, she said, maybe it's time we move into a bigger place, one where Ava can have her own yard. I smiled. You go ahead and dream big, baby. You've earned it, but don't rush out of this old porch too quick. It's seen the worst of us and held the best of us. She laughed. You and that porch, Ma. Me and that porch, I said, tapping the railing. It's where I prayed, cried, and learned that no matter how dark the night, morning still shows up. Later that night, after everyone was asleep, I sat there one more time, just me and the hum of summer air. I looked up and whispered, Thank you, Lord, for the lessons I didn't want, but needed. Because that's the truth of it. Pain teaches, patience saves, and forgiveness sets you free. So if you're sitting out there somewhere, thinking your world's falling apart, hear me good. Sometimes it's just falling into place. You hold on, you keep the faith, and one day you'll sit where I am now, tired, wiser, but grateful. And you'll see that everything that tried to break you was only preparing you to stand stronger. That's the real justice. The kind that don't need applause. The kind that lets you sleep in peace. Because in the end, baby, the truth always wins. Always. The next morning, sunlight poured through the lace curtains, soft and golden. It landed right across Ava's toy box, the same one her mama used to use when she was little. Funny how life circles back like that. I was making breakfast, grits, eggs, and the last of the biscuits from yesterday, when Ava came padding into the kitchen, still half asleep. "Grandma," she mumbled, "why do you pray so much?" I laughed. "Because talking to God keeps me from talking back to people." She giggled, rubbing her eyes. "Does he always answer you?" I paused, thinking about all the nights I cried on that porch, wondering the same thing. He always answers, baby. Sometimes not how we want, but always how we need. She nodded, as if she understood more than most grown folks I know. A child's got an old soul. Later that day, Tasha joined me out back while I hung laundry. The air smelled of clean cotton and magnolia. She said, "Ma, I've been thinking about going back to school. Maybe early childhood education. I want to do it right this time." I looked at her, proud and teary all at once. "You sure you're ready for that?" She smiled. "I'm ready to build, not run." Lord, that hit me deep. "Then do it, baby. Don't let the past talk you out of your future." She nodded, determined. I could see it, the same fire she had as a little girl, just steadier now, focused. That evening, we all sat down for dinner, just the three of us. The table was full of food, laughter, and peace. The kind of peace you don't take for granted once you've seen what chaos can do. After we ate, Tasha helped me wash dishes while Ava sang some little tune she made up. The house smelled like lemon soap and love. Then Tasha said softly, "Ma, I keep thinking about how close we came to losing everything." I wiped my hands, looked at her. "We didn't lose, baby. We learned. And we survived. There's power in that." She smiled. "You really think people can change?" "I don't think, honey. I know. I seen it right here at this table." She leaned her head on my shoulder, and for a moment it felt like all the broken pieces had finally fit back where they belonged. You know what's strange? I used to pray for God to punish those who hurt us. But now I just thank him for protecting us long enough to see the truth. That's growth, baby. That's wisdom wrapped in scars. Before bed, I went out to the porch again, the air warm and soft. I could hear the crickets, the hum of the world settling in. I whispered, "Lord, I don't ask for much. Just keep them safe and keep me strong enough to keep loving." Because love, that's the real miracle. Not the loud kind, not the flashy kind, but the quiet love that survives storms and still smiles afterward. And as I sat there, I realized something I wish someone had told me years ago. You can't stop life from breaking your heart sometimes, but you can decide who you'll become after it does. Me? I became softer, stronger, and more thankful. And if my story reaches even one soul out there tonight, maybe it'll remind them that no pain is wasted when it teaches you how to stand tall again. So I'll keep telling it. Every word, every tear, every lesson, because that's what grandmothers do, baby. We turn our heartbreaks into hope. It was a Sunday evening when everything finally came full circle. The sky was soft pink, that kind of color that makes you stop and just breathe for a second. Ava was out front, drawing chalk hearts on the sidewalk, and Tasha was inside folding laundry. I sat on that same porch swing, the one that had held so many of my tears, my prayers, and my long nights. Only this time it was different. I wasn't waiting for trouble. I was just still. You ever notice how peace feels heavier than chaos at first? It's quiet, and that quiet feels strange when you've been fighting for too long. But baby, that quiet, it's holy. I looked out at Ava playing, her laughter bouncing through the yard, and I whispered, "That sound right there. That's God's answer." The screen door creaked open behind me. Tasha stepped out, a folder in her hand. "Ma, guess what?" I smiled. "What now, baby?" She held it up, eyes shining. "I got accepted. Classes start next month. I'm really doing this." My chest swelled with pride. "I told you you would." She sat beside me, flipping through the papers, and said, "You know, when all that mess happened, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd lost your trust forever." I took her hand. "You didn't lose it, baby. You just had to earn it back, and you did." We sat quiet for a bit, the swing creaking slow under us. The sun dipped low and the air turned gold. She said softly, "Ma, I don't think I ever thanked you for not turning your back on me when I gave you every reason to." I looked at her and smiled. That's what mothers do. We hold on, even when it hurts. Then she asked something that caught me off guard. "Do you ever regret any of it?" I leaned back, thinking. Regret? No, baby. I hurt, sure. I cried plenty. But I learned. I saw what love looks like when it's tested. And I saw how strong we really are. I wouldn't trade that for anything. She wiped her eyes, nodding. Ava ran up then, holding out her chalk-covered hands. "Grandma, look, I drew us!" On the pavement, 3 stick figures held hands under a big yellow sun. Above them, in wobbly letters, she'd written, "Love always wins." I felt tears slip down before I could stop them. I pulled her close. "You're right, baby. It sure does." And right there, under that fading sun, beside the woman I raised and the child she was raising, I felt it. Closure. Not the kind that erases pain, but the kind that honors it. Now listen to me, baby. If you're sitting somewhere thinking your story's too broken, let me tell you something. God don't waste pain. He repurposes it. He turns storms into testimonies and tears into teaching. That's what he did for me. Reggie's gone. His wrongs caught up with him. But the real victory wasn't his fall. It was our rise. The strength we found. The forgiveness we chose. The peace that stayed. As night settled in, I looked up at the stars and whispered, "Thank you, Lord, for every hard thing that led me here." Because sometimes the truth ain't in the thunder. It's in the quiet after. That's where healing lives. That's where faith breathes. And that's where I'll stay. Right here, rocking on this porch, counting my blessings, one heartbeat at a time. A few months later, the world felt brand new again. The trees were greener, the mornings calmer. Even the birds outside my window seemed to sing softer, like they knew peace had finally come home. Ava was growing fast, reading books, tying her shoes, helping me bake biscuits on Saturdays. She'd say, "Grandma, I'm your helper," and sprinkle too much flour on the counter, giggling like a melody. And Tasha, she was thriving, working at the daycare by day, studying by night. Sometimes she'd come home exhausted, eyes half shut, but there was pride in her tired smile. She was finally building something that no man, no mistake could take from her. One evening after dinner, she came and sat beside me on the couch. "Ma," she said, "I've been thinking about everything that happened. I still can't believe how close we came to losing each other." I reached over, rubbing her shoulder. "Baby, that's the thing about darkness. It always looks thicker right before the light comes back." She nodded, quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You ever think maybe all that pain had to happen? Like, for us to find our way back?" I smiled. "Oh, I don't think it, baby. I know it. God don't waste storms. He uses them to reroute his children. Now listen, I'm not saying it was easy. Some nights I still wake up remembering that white car, that whisper, that fear sitting in my chest like a stone. But when I look around this house now, Ava's laughter in the hallway, the smell of cornbread from the oven, the sound of my daughter humming softly to herself, I know we made it through for a reason." The next Sunday, our pastor asked me to give a short testimony at church. I told him, "Pastor, my story's a long one, but I'll make it short enough for Sunday service." He chuckled. "Miss Clara, you take as long as the Spirit needs." When I stood at that pulpit, my hands trembled a little, but when I looked out and saw Tasha and Ava sitting in the front row, my voice steadied. I said, "Sometimes God don't pull you out of the fire right away. He lets you stay there till the heat burns away what ain't meant to stay. I thought betrayal would break me, but it built me. I thought fear would silence me, but it gave me a voice. And I thought the devil had won, but baby, the Lord don't lose. The whole church went quiet. You could hear sniffles from the back row. After service, a young woman came up, maybe late 20s, eyes swollen from crying. She said, "Miss Clara, my mama don't talk to me no more. We fight all the time, but hearing you today, I think I'm going to call her." Lord, I hugged that girl so tight. You do that, baby. Call her tonight. Don't wait for the world to teach you what love already knows. See, that's when I understood why I'd been through all that pain. It wasn't just for me. It was for someone else to find healing through my scars. That's what we're here for, Not to walk through life untouched, but to walk through fire and come out with a light somebody else can follow. So if my story ever reaches another soul sitting somewhere in their dark moment, thinking it's over, let them see this old grandmother and know it's never too late. Because love doesn't expire. It just waits for you to remember it. And forgiveness, it ain't weakness, baby. It's freedom wearing peace like a crown. The seasons kept changing, and so did we. By the time autumn rolled around again, the house felt alive, warm, busy, full of laughter and second chances. Tasha had started her classes and was doing better than she ever imagined. Every night after work, she'd spread her books across the kitchen table. I'd bring her tea, and Ava would sit beside her, coloring while pretending to study. Sometimes I'd just stand there in the doorway, watching them both, heart swelling so big it hurt a little. That's when it hit me. This was what healing looked like. Not some grand moment of celebration, just simple peace showing up in small ways every single day. Now listen, baby. People think miracles are loud, flashing things, but most of the time, they whisper, like the sound of my granddaughter's laughter mixing with the creak of this old house. Like my daughter saying, "Ma, can you quiz me on this chapter?" instead of, "Can you bail me out of another mess?" ... One evening, as the leaves started falling, we all sat around the living room folding laundry. Ava looked up at me and said, "Grandma, do you still think about the bad man?" Her question stopped me cold. I took a slow breath. "Sometimes, baby, but not the way I used to." She frowned. "Aren't you mad at him?" I looked into those bright eyes that hadn't yet learned bitterness. "No, sweetheart. I don't waste anger on ghosts. What he meant for harm turned into something good for us. That's how God works." She nodded, thinking hard, then smiled. "Then I guess we won." I laughed. "You sure did, baby. You sure did." Later that night, when the house got quiet, I found myself on the porch again, like always. The air was crisp, carrying the smell of pine and distant smoke. The same porch that had seen fear now saw peace. I closed my eyes and whispered, "You see, Lord, we made it." It wasn't a question. It was a thank you. A few days later, Tasha came home with news. She'd been offered a supervisor role at the daycare. I almost dropped the pot of greens I was stirring. "Supervisor? Look at you, baby!" She grinned. "You think I can handle it?" I wiped my hands and hugged her tight. "Handle it? Girl, you survived storms that would have drowned most folks. You were built for this." She laughed through her tears. "You always know what to say." I winked. "That's because I done lived enough to mean it." Now, I don't know how much time I got left on this earth, but I know this. If my story ends right here, it ends full. Not because everything turned perfect, but because we found peace where there used to be pain. Baby, that's the best kind of ending a person can have. So if you're still listening, if you've been carrying your own hurt like a heavy coat, hear me now. Take it off. Put it down. You survived what was meant to break you. Let karma do her work and let grace do the rest. Because sooner or later, every storm runs out of rain. And when the sun comes back, you'll see. Love was never gone. It was just waiting for you to notice it again. Winter crept in slow that year. Frost on the porch rails, breath showing in the morning air. The kind of cold that makes you grateful for every bit of warmth you've built. I'd wake up before sunrise, put on my old robe, and make coffee while the house was still quiet. Those quiet mornings became my favorite part of the day. Just me, the ticking clock, and the peace I fought so hard to earn. Sometimes I'd catch myself thinking about the past, not with pain anymore, just understanding. Every mistake, every heartbreak, it all led me here. One morning, Tasha came into the kitchen, hair messy, yawning. "Ma, you up already?" I smiled. "Old habits, baby. Sun comes up, I follow." She laughed and poured herself a cup. "You know, I think about him sometimes. Reggie." I looked at her, waiting. "Not 'cause I miss him," she said quickly, shaking her head, "but 'cause I can't believe I ever trusted someone like that. It scares me how blind I was." I reached across the table, took her hand. "Baby, blindness don't mean weakness. It just means you were looking for love in the wrong light." She nodded slow, tears in her eyes. "I'm lucky it didn't cost me more." "It cost you enough," I said softly. "But look at you now, standing tall, raising your daughter right. You took the pain and built a new life. That's victory, baby." She smiled, squeezing my hand. "You always find the good in everything." I chuckled. "That's 'cause I learned the hard way that bitterness don't pay bills, and it sure don't bring peace." That night, the three of us decorated the Christmas tree. Ava insisted on putting the angel on top herself, climbing onto a chair while I steadied her. The lights flickered, warm and golden, filling the room with a kind of softness no money can buy. When we finished, Ava stood back, hands on her hips, proud. "Grandma, look! It's perfect!" I smiled, feeling tears sting my eyes. "It sure is, baby. Just like you." Tasha looked over and said quietly, "We're really okay, aren't we?" I turned to her. "More than okay. We're blessed." Later, after Ava went to bed, I sat by the window, watching snow begin to fall. Little flakes catching the streetlight, dancing down like grace itself. I whispered to the night, "We made it, Lord. Through every test, every tear, every long dark hour, we made it. Now hear me, baby. When life breaks you, don't rush to fix the cracks. Let the light come through them. That's where wisdom lives. Karma did her part, yes, but grace carried us the rest of the way. And that's the truth I want you to remember when my voice fades and the story ends. No pain lasts forever. No betrayal defines you. If you just keep standing, keep praying, keep loving, you'll look back one day, same as me, and realize you didn't just survive. You became the proof that love outlasts the storm. And baby, that's the kind of justice only heaven can write." Spring came back around, soft as a sigh. The cherry tree out front bloomed brighter than ever, pink petals floating across the yard like tiny reminders that time keeps moving, even when you think it won't. Ava was taller now, talking about third grade, new friends, new dreams. She had that sparkle in her eye again, the one I used to pray would come back. And Tasha, well, she was shining too. You could see peace in her walk, purpose in her eyes. She'd stopped running from life and started living it. One Saturday morning, the three of us were out planting flowers. Ava dug holes with her little plastic shovel, while Tasha lined up the marigolds. I stood there, watching them, and it hit me. Everything we lost had made room for everything we were meant to have. Tasha wiped her hands on her jeans and said, "Ma, I've been thinking about buying a small house closer to work, something with a garden." I smiled. "A garden, huh? Look at you dreaming like your mama used to." She laughed. "You'd come stay sometimes, right?" I winked. "Baby, I'd come plant my chair right on your porch and never leave." We laughed, the kind of laugh that comes easy when you've walked through the fire and found the cool air waiting on the other side. That night after dinner, I tucked Ava into bed. She looked up at me and said, "Grandma, why do you always tell stories before I sleep?" I brushed her hair back from her face. "So you don't forget where you come from, baby. Stories keep us safe. They remind us what to hold on to." She smiled sleepily. "Then one day I'll tell your story." Lord, my heart just melted right there. You do that, sweetheart. Tell it true. When she fell asleep, I sat beside her a while, watching her breathe. that peaceful rhythm only children have. I thought about all the nights I'd watched over her before, heart pounding, afraid of who might come knocking. But now, all I felt was calm. Later, I went back to the porch, the same place where it all began. The moon hung high, quiet and sure. I rocked slow, hands folded, and whispered, "Thank you, Lord," for every trial that became a testimony. You understand what I'm saying, baby? Life don't give out easy lessons. It breaks you down just enough so you can see what really matters. And when you finally see it, you hold it tight. That's what I'm doing now. Holding tight to peace, to love, to faith. I don't know how many more springs I'll see, but I do know this. Every one that comes feels sweeter than the last. So if you've been waiting for your season to change, hold on just a little longer. The flowers always bloom again. And when they do, you'll realize what I did, that every heartbreak, every sleepless night, every unanswered prayer was really just clearing the soil for something better to grow. Because, baby, the truth always finds its way through. And love never stops blooming. By the time summer rolled in again, the air smelled like life, fresh cut grass, barbecue smoke, a little sweetness from the honeysuckle by the fence. I'd sit out on the porch most evenings, a glass of sweet tea sweating in my hand, and watch the sun melt into gold across the rooftops. Tasha had just finished her first year of school. She walked across that little stage at the community college, cap tilted to one side, and when they called her name, Lord, my heart near burst out of my chest. Ava stood on the chair beside me, clapping so loud the whole room turned to look. When it was over, Tasha ran up and threw her arms around me. "Ma, I did it!" I laughed through tears. "I told you you would. Didn't I always say you were meant for more?" She nodded, eyes shining. "You never gave up on me." "Wasn't allowed to," I said, smiling. "You're mine." That moment, her in that cap and gown, Ava beaming beside us, felt like the final page of a long, hard chapter closing in peace. Now listen, maybe. When you get older, you start to understand something real important. The things that hurt you most often end up teaching you best. Pain is a loud teacher, but mercy is patient. It waits until you're ready to listen. That evening, we had a small dinner at home, just the three of us. Ava drew little stars on her napkin and said, "Mommy's a teacher now, right?" Tasha smiled. "Almost, baby. One step at a time." I leaned back, watching them. The house glowed soft in the lamplight. My heart felt full in a way I can't quite explain. Not happy like laughter, deeper, quiet, knowing kind of joy. Later that night, after the dishes were done, Tasha and I sat outside, watching fireflies blink across the yard. She said, "You ever think about how different things could have been if that man never came into our lives?" I thought about it for a second. "Sometimes," I said. "But then I remember, we might not have learned half of what we know now. Pain pushed us where comfort never would have." She nodded. "So even the bad parts had purpose." "Exactly, baby," I said softly. "Even the bad parts." Ava came running out then, barefoot and laughing, chasing one of those fireflies. She cupped it in her tiny hands, eyes wide. "Grandma, look, it's glowing." I smiled. "That's how God reminds us there's still light, even in the dark." She giggled and set it free. And as I watched it rise into the night, I realized something. This was my story's true ending. Not the fear, not the tears, not even the justice. It was this moment. 3 generations sitting under the same stars, finally unafraid. So if you've been waiting for your light to come back, don't lose hope, baby. It might take a long road and a lot of pain, but it'll find you because that's what truth does. It always glows, quiet, steady, and strong enough to show you the way home. Fall came softly that year, like the earth exhaled. The trees along our street turned the color of honey and rust, and every morning the porch smelled like dew and old wood. I'd sit out there with my shawl, listening to the world wake up. Ava had started 3rd grade, proud as could be with her new backpack. Every morning she'd yell, "Love you, Grandma," before the school bus doors closed. And every time, I'd wave till she was out of sight. Funny thing, no matter how old they get, that goodbye never gets easier. Tasha was doing her practicum now, teaching preschool. She'd come home with stories about the kids. Sticky hands, spilled paint, and all. I could see it in her eyes. She'd found her calling. One evening, she came home holding a small card. "Ma, look," she said, smiling. It was a thank you note from one of her students, written in crooked little letters. "Miss Tasha makes me feel safe." Her eyes filled up. "That's worth more than any paycheck," she whispered. I nodded. Safety is a blessing most folks don't appreciate till they lose it. You giving it back now. That's redemption, baby. We sat quiet for a while after that, both knowing how deep those words went. Later that night, after Ava was asleep, Tasha said, "Ma, do you ever think about writing all this down? Everything we've been through?" I smiled. "It's all written, baby, just not on paper. It's written right here," I said, tapping my heart. She laughed. "I mean for other people. For someone who might be going through what we did." I thought about that, rocking slow in my chair. The idea settled deep, like a seed finding its soil. "Maybe I will," I said finally. "But if I do, it won't be a story about pain. It'll be about what comes after." She grinned. "You'd help a lot of people, Ma." "Maybe," I said, looking out at the night. "But even if it helps one soul feel less alone, that's enough." Now listen, baby. That's the truth right there. We go through things not just for ourselves, but so we can light the path for somebody else walking in the dark. The world's full of folks pretending they got it all together. But real strength? That's telling the truth about what almost broke you and showing that you're still standing. A week later, I did start writing. Just a few pages at first. The words came slow, but honest. I wrote about fear, forgiveness, faith, about how justice don't always show up in a courtroom. Sometimes it shows up in a quiet kitchen where laughters come back to stay. And as I wrote, tears fell, but not the sad kind, the kind that heal as they fall. When I finished that first page, I sat back and whispered, "There it is." The story that began with a whisper in a grocery store now had an ending full of grace. And I realized what I'd called pain was really preparation. Because, baby, sometimes God lets your heart break wide open just so more light can fit inside. Winter came again, slow and quiet, the kind of cold that makes the windows hum and the world slow down enough for you to hear your own heart. The house was warm, though, smelled like cinnamon, pine, and peace. Tasha had hung lights along the porch, and Ava had cut out paper snowflakes to tape on the windows. I swear, that little girl had turned our home into a snow globe. One night, after dinner, we all sat by the fire. Ava was coloring, Tasha reading her schoolbook, and I was knitting one of those uneven scarves I never seemed to finish. It was ordinary, simple, nothing special, and yet I felt something holy in that moment. I said, "You know, baby, it's strange. After all that happened, I used to think I'd never feel normal again." Tasha looked up. "And now?" "Now," I said, smiling at the firelight dancing on the walls, "I realize this is normal. Not perfect, not painless, just peaceful. And that's enough." She reached over, squeezed my hand. "More than enough, Ma." We sat in silence for a while. Just the sound of logs crackling and Ava humming softly to herself. Then Ava said, "Grandma, can we read one of your stories tonight?" I chuckled. "You mean the ones I've been writing?" "Yeah, the one about the brave grandma." I looked at her and smiled. "That one's still being written, baby." She grinned. "Then read what you got so far." So I did. I pulled out my notebook and read the first few pages, the ones about that day in the grocery store. About the whisper, about how fear tried to win, but didn't. When I finished, she clapped her little hands and said, "Grandma, you're the hero." Lord, I couldn't hold back the tears. I said, "No, baby. Heroes fall and get back up. I just learned to stand again." She thought for a second, then said, "That still sounds like a hero to me." Tasha smiled from across the room. "She's right, Ma." And for once, I didn't argue. I just let that truth settle in my bones. Because the truth is, surviving ain't luck, it's grace. It's waking up every day and choosing love over bitterness, peace over revenge. It's seeing scars not as shame, but as proof that you made it through. Later, after everyone went to bed, I sat by that dying fire, the last orange glow fading into ash. I whispered, "Thank you, Lord, for letting my story end in warmth. Now listen, baby. Life don't promise smooth roads. It promises lessons. And when you finally learn to thank God not just for the blessings, but for the lessons too, that's when you're truly free. So if you ever find yourself sitting in the dark, thinking it's over, remember me, the old woman who followed her fear and found her faith waiting on the other side. Because no matter how hard the road, no matter how cold the night, morning still comes. And when it does, you'll see what I see now, that justice ain't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet as a child's laughter in a house that finally knows peace. Spring rolled around again, soft and golden. The days stretched longer, the air smelled like rain and lilacs, and the whole world seemed to breathe easier. By then, Tasha had finished her first year of classes, and Ava was planning her birthday party. She wanted balloons, cake, and a grandma dance. I told her, "Now, baby, these knees don't do what they used to." But she just laughed and said, "They'll remember when the music starts." And truth is, they did. That evening, as the party lights twinkled in the backyard, I stood watching them. Tasha chasing Ava around the table, both of them laughing, cake frosting on their faces. For a moment, I closed my eyes and thanked God for every tear that led me here. You see, baby, people think karma is about punishment, but I've learned it's more about balance. Life don't let wrong stay heavy forever. It tilts, eventually back toward light. You just gotta hold on long enough to see it happen. After everyone left that night, the three of us sat outside under the stars. Fireflies flickered across the yard like tiny miracles. Ava was half asleep in my lap, humming a tune I didn't recognize. Tasha whispered, "Ma, I read that last page of your story. It's beautiful. You really gonna share it?" I looked out at the night sky. "I think I will. Folks need to know that darkness don't win unless you let it." She nodded, eyes shining. "Then you tell it, Ma. You tell it for all the women who didn't think they could make it." I smiled. "That's the plan, baby." We sat quiet after that, just listening to the crickets, feeling the soft wind on our faces. And I realized this was peace. Not just safety, not just survival. Real peace. The kind that comes after the storm, when your soul finally exhales. Now listen, baby. If you remember anything from my story, let it be this. When the world takes something from you, it's not always to punish you. Sometimes it's to make space for something better. I lost my trust, my safety, almost my family, but I gained strength, wisdom, and a faith I didn't even know I had. That's karma's true gift. It doesn't destroy, it reveals. So if you're still waiting for your balance to come back, keep standing, keep believing, because one day you'll look up, same as I did, and realize the hurt didn't break you. It shaped you. And when you finally see that, baby, you'll understand what I mean when I say the truth always comes home. And love never leaves. It just waits for you to find it again. Summer returned like an old friend, warm and forgiving. The porch smelled of iced tea and lemon pie, and Ava's laughter danced through the air like music. Every evening she'd run barefoot through the grass, chasing bubbles, her little giggles echoing into the golden light. Tasha would sit beside me on the porch steps, her head resting against the post, face calm in a way I hadn't seen in years. "Ma," she said one night, "I finally get what you meant, about storms not being the end." I smiled. "Took you long enough, baby." She laughed. "Guess I had to walk through a few of my own." I looked at her and said softly, "That's the only way you learn the rhythm of life. Storm, calm, growth. It's all connected." We fell quiet after that, just watching Ava draw hearts in the dirt with a stick. And Lord, I swear my chest ached with gratitude, because every single thing I thought would destroy us ended up teaching us how to love better. Now listen, baby. People think miracles are loud. They ain't. They come gentle, like forgiveness whispered at midnight, like a child's hand finding yours after fear tried to pull it away. A week later, we got an invitation in the mail. Ava's school wanted to honor families at the end of year assembly. Tasha insisted I come. I told her, "You sure they want this old woman in their crowd?" And she said, "Ma, you're the reason we're even standing here. You have to come." So I did. When they called Ava's name, she marched up on that stage in her little yellow dress, holding a small paper certificate. But instead of just smiling for the camera, she turned to the microphone and said, "I want to thank my grandma and my mommy. They're my heroes." Baby, my heart just stopped right there. The crowd clapped, and I sat frozen, tears rolling down my cheeks. I wasn't expecting to feel that much all at once: pride, joy, peace, and a kind of ache only love can give. After the ceremony, Ava ran to me, arms wide. "Did you hear me, Grandma?" I hugged her tight. "I heard you, baby, and I felt it too." Tasha wiped her eyes, whispering, "Full circle, Ma. We made it full circle." And she was right. That night back home, I took out my notebook, the one with all my stories, and added one last line at the bottom of that final page. Justice doesn't always come in a courtroom. Sometimes it comes in laughter, in peace, in the sound of your family safe again. Then I closed it and smiled, because my story didn't need another chapter. It had already written itself in love, forgiveness, and faith. Now, baby, if you stayed with me through all this, through the tears, the lessons, the prayers, let me leave you with this last truth. Pain changes you, but it don't have to harden you. Let it teach you instead. Forgive who you can, pray for who you can't, and never stop believing that light always finds its way back home. Because it does, baby. Every single time.